Hello there. Welcome to another episode of EKU Online's eCast series. EKU Online's mission is to change lives by providing access to affordable and high-quality degree programs in meaningful disciplines that positively impact our society. We thank you for joining us today. Today, we are joined by Dr. Nedim Slijepcevic, who is an assistant professor in the new Masters of Science program in Instructional Design at Eastern Kentucky University. Dr. Slijepcevic is originally from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and has lived in the United States for the past 20 plus years, lived 6 years in Buffalo, New York, and the rest in Kentucky. Like Benjamin Franklin, who for the rest of his life, regardless of his other accomplishments, always thought of himself as a printer, Dr. Slijepcevic considers himself an instructional designer. He completed his doctorate at the University of Kentucky in curriculum and instruction. He also holds a Master's of Science degree in multidisciplinary studies, focusing on multimedia and learning, and he has a Bachelor of Science in Computer Information Systems from Buffalo State College. His research interests include applications for augmented reality for learning and training. Dr. Slijepcevic has over 15 years of instructional design, training, and online teaching and learning experience. During this time, he created countless online courses, trainings, and other learning artifacts across several learning environments and universities. In his previous jobs, he was an undergraduate and graduate assistant for the Center for Development of Human Services in Buffalo, New York, and a translator for the U.S. Army. As a translator, he supported peace stabilization operations in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And part of the job included daily interaction with the civilian population and government officials as a part of the civil affairs and psychological operations team. He and his wife have a 7-year-old girl who keeps them very busy. And he enjoys photography, audiobooks, cycling, working on his camper van, gardening, and many other things in his free time, which he doesn't have a lot of. I can attest to that. Welcome, Dr. Slijepcevic. Thank you so much for your time today.
Hi, Sam. Thank you for having me here.
Well, all right, let's jump right in. So before we get into the details of the new instructional design program here at EKU, take a minute to tell our audience what the discipline known as instructional design is and what it is not.
Yeah, sure. And also thank you again for giving me this opportunity to talk about instructional design. Instructional design is a fairly established field. It's been around for about 50, 60 years. There's many definitions. I would like to offer mine. It's really a multidisciplinary field that uses a learner-centered approach for the creation of learning experiences that ultimately result in acquisition and application of knowledge and skills. It's a creative process that includes many skills such as writing, user interface design, training, evaluation, multimedia creation, project management, and attracts individuals from many fields, including programmers, graphic designers, teachers, librarians, and other individuals in learning design. In short, it's ever-changing and it's really exciting field. What instructional design is not, it's not just one aspect of the things that I just mentioned. It's not just media creation or just workforce development. Each of these have a job titles, multimedia developer or trainer. Instead, instructional designer is someone who takes all these things, writing, visual design, and experience design, and other things into consideration and designs and develops the best learning experience for a given audience.
So now that we have a better understanding of this field, tell us about this new and exciting program that's launched here at EKU. How does it compare to other such programs in the state, and what makes this program unique?
So yeah, sure. Just quick recap. This master in instructional design is 30 credit hours. It's very accelerated and can be completed in 18 months. How does it compare to other programs? We worked on this program for over a year, about a year and a half. We researched the best approaches to teaching instructional design and what makes a good program. We performed needs assessment and really explore what a good ID program should include. We surveyed industry professionals, we conducted interviews, and we really came up with the best curriculum that will prepare our students for future ID careers. I think it's the most current program in the state. It offers a mix of hands-on experiences and sound principles that are needed for good instructional design, theory, and other things like that. We selected the most current literature and principles that our students can use today. And a lot of them are already using them, and they're creating projects for their for the place of their employment. Our advantage is that we're new, nimble, and we are constantly feeling the pulse of the industry. We learn about new ID models, learning technologies, user interface design, updated theoretical frameworks. And we also encourage our students to join the same learning communities as we do, as faculty do, so we can learn and grow together. Another unique thing that differentiates us from other programs, we offer 2 certificates, user experience design and online learning design. And students are guaranteed to complete 1 program by the time they graduate. And if they complete 2 additional courses, I think they'll earn the 2nd certificate. We also have 3 types of internships. We have internal internship with Instructional Design Center, and we have 2 external internships, one from a selected list of employers, and the last one would be a place of student employment where they can complete their internship there. And the last component that differentiates us from other programs is the portfolio. Students, well, as they go through the program, they complete these projects and they become artifacts that they can compile at the end of the program, and they can use it for their professional portfolio. Students will save it. They will create a web portfolio that is critiqued, and it can be used to demonstrate their knowledge to their future employers as they're looking for jobs. I hope that answers your question.
As we looked at your initial course, I mean, it's very obvious to notice the rigor upon which it's built. So can you elaborate, what kinds of degrees and or backgrounds should a prospective student have before entering into this program? And on top of that, what type of person, Dr. Slijepcevic, makes for a good instructional designer? What kinds of abilities, skills, and characteristics does that person possess?
Yeah, sure. That's another great question. I'll just start from myself. I'm a programmer. I got my undergrad in programming, and I quickly realized that it's not something that I want to spend the rest of my life doing. I like programming, but I just couldn't do it long term, I think. And then I kind of went into education and technology and learning technologies. So that's one example. So, coming from a programming background, also I see a lot of teachers, a lot of librarians. I've seen a lot of graphic designers, journalists, all sorts of backgrounds. One cool thing about instructional design is that kind of everybody's welcome, and everybody brings something to the table. And with a little bit of training and obviously some educational background, they'll be ready for instructional design. You asked me what type of person makes a good instructional designer. I would say that person who likes to learn, who's a lifelong learner, curious, adaptive, who doesn't mind constant change. It's always changing. Person who's jack of all trades, that's kind of what comes to mind. Who's explorer, who doesn't mind working with different people, with like different subject matter experts. And lastly, you asked me about abilities, skills, and characteristics. I would say, I already mentioned almost anything goes. I also mentioned the programming part, right? But I would say that knowledge of pedagogy and andragogy or learning models, that's number one. And even if you don't have it, obviously with some, after 1 or 2 courses, you'll get the necessary background. Experience with learning technologies, that's always a plus. Or just somebody who likes to tinker with different types of technologies and not using them for the sake of technologies, but using them meaningfully to facilitate learning, obviously. Another background would be various facets of training and teaching adults. Instructional design, a lot of instructional designers are also trainers who work with adults, and a lot of the materials that is created by instructional designers is geared toward adult learners. Obviously, it applies to K through 12, a little bit less. Also, a lot of technical skills, HTML, CSS, things like that. Those are kind of basic. Video production, development of interactives, multimedia design. Also, after technical skills, I would say a person who has visual and artistic talents. There's a visual and artistic thread that goes through instructional design, about let's say 20%, and having background in that is immensely important. We all appreciate visually appealing instruction, or visually appealing anything almost. So I think that is an important skill to have. Also, we have assessment development. If you have any background in assessment development, or obviously you can acquire that in the program as well. Instructional designers are usually excellent communicators, and that can be taught and that can be learned. Obviously, myself, I'm an introvert, and speaking to people doesn't come easy to me. But over the years, I practiced and I learned how to do that. So that's a skill, obviously, that can be acquired. It's easy for some, while it may not be easy for others. But like I said, anything can be learned, and I want to say that is an important skill to have. And also project management. That is another one, especially if you're working as a corporate instructional designer or healthcare or government contracting. You will need that skill of managing multiple projects or things of that nature. I hope that answers your question, Sam.
I think you knock it out of the park. And you say, a jack of all trades. I think that sums it up perfectly, in that there's commonalities there, but many different backgrounds can come and contribute to this field and bring their own perspective. And there's so many fields that ID touches now. So in looking at IDL 800, and this is the first course in the curriculum, we noticed that almost a quarter of the final grade is a project called Instructional Unit Prototype. So please tell us a little bit about that and why you've weighted it so heavily. How does such a project fit in with your overall curriculum strategy in this program?
Yeah, sure. We're firm believers in project-based assessment, and that's where students work on half or semester-long projects, and they receive frequent feedback from faculty and other students from their peers. And on the end, they produce a deliverable that can be part of their portfolio and a showcase for their future employers. We don't practice summative assessments and assessments like final exams or midterms. Instead, our students work on a concept that they can use now or tomorrow when working as an instructional designer. And to answer your question, how does it fit overall with curriculum strategy? As I mentioned before, portfolio and artifacts that they develop in each course. Students work on these projects and use them as their portfolio, part of their portfolio. So for example, in 800, they design instructional design document or documentation that they can use to showcase to their future employer, or they develop the instructional unit that can become a part of their portfolio. That unit is usually converted to e-learning or something similar, or multimedia interactive, and they can readily show it as a part of the portfolio. So I hope that helps.
I think that's a really great component that you and Dr. Daniel have put into this, that, the practical applicability of this prototype, the fact that it's not just a one-off and it's not just a project for project's sake, like it is something that can be used in the portfolio. It is something that can be deployed as an instructional model. And I think that's a very forward-thinking approach. And it just is a testament to the love and care and respect that you all have put into this program. So it's fascinating. You also have an internship component to this degree program. So could you explain a little bit more about that particularly, and how does it differ from other instructional design degree programs?
So as I already mentioned, we have 3 internship paths. The first one is with the Instructional Design Center, and Instructional Design Center at EKU is in charge of designing and developing online courses at EKU through eCampus. And so that's one opportunity for students, where students can go in and they work with academic instructional designers. So that's somebody, that internship is for ID who see themselves working at the university or, in various settings. So they would work with instructional designers, they would develop interactives, develop online courses, things of that nature. And the second type of internship is the external internship in industry. We're working on different companies across the United States. And we're developing relationships, and we will develop a list of companies that students can pick from, and they can complete their internship there. This wouldn't be face-to-face internship. Obviously, they would be remote internship experience. And the third type of internship is the external at the place of work. So, for example, if a student is already working for a company that they can intern at, that they can complete meaningful learning experiences, that would be equally fine as well. So we would work with the student and they would develop a body of work and complete tasks that will give them meaningful experience and expertise in instructional design, and they can move on and graduate the program and get a job.
Where do you see the future of instructional design going, Dr. Slijepcevic? Does it have a bright future, and will graduates from your program be able to find professional positions?
And I really don't like to bring the example of pandemic, but pandemic really affected our discipline. It really spotlighted the need for instructional design and e-learning. Over the past 2 years, you've seen the explosion of e-learning and training. Like the K through 12 students were thrust into online learning, which is obviously not ideal. My daughter, she went online for her first grade, and I cannot even begin to comprehend what it means for her. I mean, we'll know in 10, 20 years. But those are the situations that are still happening. So we need to, whether we like it or not, we need to adapt to ever-changing circumstances and ever-changing workforce, and the need for learning materials. As we speak, education is being redefined. Higher education, for example, we had hybrid flex, we have face-to-face and online type of instruction that's changing and blending. The nature of training in businesses is changing. Asynchronous and synchronous instruction is being redefined. And I keep saying redefined, but that's what's really happening right now. And I think that e-learning is here to stay, and we just have to learn and adapt to it. I don't think it's panacea for everything. It's not going to solve all the problems, and e-learning might be better suited for adult learners, for certain group of learners than others. Obviously, K through 12 may not be ideal, but other adult learners are usually better suited for it. And that's where instructional designers fit into the e-learning development, online training, and online learning. And I was just the other day, I was checking the Bureau of Labor Statistics website, and they just update their job outlooks for training and development specialists from 2020 to 2030, and they're projecting 11% above average job growth. Learning coordinators, which is their designation for instructional designers, I mean, it's kind of loosely labeled there, but they're projecting job growth between 2020 and 2030 of 10%. So that is nice. I'm curious to see what are their projections for 2021 to 2031. And I think the future is bright for instructional design. When I started instructional design in 2005, 2006, there were barely any resources out there. And I go now, I go on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on several other social media sites, and there's all these groups of several thousand instructional designers or trainers congregating, exchanging opinions, asking the relevant questions that I see every day, pretty much. So I think it's really ripe for expansion, and it's really exciting to see this discipline grow over the last couple of years. And I'm happy to be in the part of it, and I'm happy to see our students be part of it.
So we've talked a lot about ID. We've talked a little bit about you, Dr. Slijepcevic, but please share with our listeners a little bit about your personal interests. I know as a father and as a full-time faculty member and as a trainer, as an ID, as a human being, you don't have a lot of free time for yourself. But we mentioned some of the things you like to do. So would you elaborate on some of those hobbies and tell us what other interests you have?
Sure, sure thing. My hobbies, I really love spending time with my family, obviously. But my personal time, I love to do photography. I've been avid photographer for about 15 years, and it's kind of my private thing that I like to do. And I would never do it as a profession. I think I would lose interest. And that leads me to outdoor exploration. Photography takes me out of the house and makes me want to go into nature and explore. My wife and I, we bought a van last year, and we converted it into a camper. So we just loaded up, and we go various places that we seem interesting. Wyoming, Michigan. We just came back from Upper Peninsula in Michigan. I do nature and equine photography. I'd love to go out west again and stay on a camp on a BLM land and just photograph wild Mustangs and horse management areas. So that's kind of that's kind of what I like to do in me time. So yeah.
If you had to give an elevator speech to a handful of prospective instructional design students, and you had about 60 seconds to tell them why they should become instructional designers, Dr. Slijepcevic, what do you say to that group of people?
If you're curious, if you love learning new things, exploring technology, if you exploring technology and applying it to learning, or if you enjoy helping others and have meaningful impact on their learning, then you may be a good candidate for instructional design. You would be an architect of learning experiences, working with multiple stakeholders and subject matter experts to design the best learning experiences for a given audience. And that audience can be K through 12, but mostly adults working in different industries. You would be helping organizations make data-driven decisions based on learner analytics, designing media interactives, videos, infographics, designing online or e-learning content, crafting gamified instruction, developing training, user experiences. If you like the sound of all these things, then come on over and let's talk about instructional design.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Slijepcevic. I mean, on a personal note, obviously, I've known you for my entire tenure at EKU, and to see your development of this program and the care that you have put into it is a fascinating thing, and I'm very happy to have been a small part of it. But it's a pleasure letting our listeners get to know you a little better, and look forward to continuing to work with you in the future.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for this opportunity, and it was a pleasure talking to you.